Hello all. Welcome and thank you for joining us today for the New South Wales Small Business Innovation Research Program webinar. My name is Lewis Bennett. I'm a Senior Project Officer at the Office of the New South Wales Chief Scientist and Engineer. I'd like to begin today by acknowledging that we meet on many different Aboriginal lands. I myself am joining the meeting on the traditional land of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. We want to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands and recognise their continuing connection to land, waters and culture. And we pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Just some housekeeping before we start. Today's webinar will consist of a 10-minute overview of the SBIR program, followed by a presentation from the Challenge Agency, and we'll finish with roughly 30 minutes of question time. Today's webinar is recorded and will be available on the New South Wales SBIR website in the coming days. If you'd like to ask a question during the webinar, please type it in the Q&A box at the right hand of your screen. Today's webinar will focus on the challenge from the Department of Primary Industries involving biosecurity surveillance. And again, we will hold a Q&A session right after their challenge presentation. We'll be answering as many of your questions as we can during the Q&A session. If we do not have time to get to the questions during the webinar, we will answer any remaining questions and include the responses in the transcript available on our website. I will now be running you through the details of the SBIR program before we discuss the specific SBIR challenge statement for today's webinar. At the end of today's session, there will be an opportunity to ask questions about both the SBIR program and the specific challenge. The SBIR program is managed by the Office of the Chief Scientist and Engineer. Our office has 4 distinct functions. We produce evidence-based scientific advice to the New South Wales Government on a range of challenges. We also support New South Wales research, attracting research talent and infrastructure through managing the Research Attraction and Acceleration Program. We promote science outreach and education for both students and the general public, and we work alongside academia, government and industry to drive the commercialisation of research excellence in New South Wales. The New South Wales Small Business Innovation Research Program is an initiative of the New South Wales Government that provides competitive grants to small and medium-sized enterprises to find and commercialise innovative solutions to well-defined problems for New South Wales government agencies. The 2022 SBIR program will provide up to $12 million in grants to New South Wales SMEs to solve the 7 New South Wales government challenges. The establishment of the SBIR program was recommended as a priority action of the Turning Ideas into Jobs, Accelerating Research and Development in New South Wales Action Plan, and the action plan was developed by the Accelerating R&D in New South Wales Advisory Council, a group of leaders with experience in research, the innovation ecosystem and government policy. The New South Wales SBIR program is currently in its 2nd year and is modelled on successful Australian and international examples, including the Commonwealth Business Research and Innovation Initiative, the SBIR program in the United States, and the Small Business Research Initiative in the United Kingdom. The SBIR program is an important element of the New South Wales Government's approach to increase innovation and prosperity in New South Wales. Innovation generates the products and services crucial for future jobs and industries. Research and development undertaken in businesses and research organisations are a major source of innovation and should be supported for the whole community and economy to thrive. This year, the SBIR program has 7 challenges. Proposed solutions must address one of the 7 challenges. Each challenge describes a current New South Wales government agency problem requiring an innovative solution. The challenges are waste recovery and management from Healthshare New South Wales, biosecurity surveillance from the Department of Primary Industries, cultural and linguistic diversity services from New South Wales Health, recycled content verification from the Office of Energy and Climate Change, school zone alerting system challenge from Transport for New South Wales, urban heat island remediation from Greater Sydney Cities Commission, and non-invasive vital sign monitoring from corrective services. Later in today's seminar, we'll discuss today's challenge, the biosecurity surveillance, in more detail. The benefits of the New South Wales program, SBIR program for participating SMEs, include up to $1.1 million in grant funding to develop and commercialise a new technology or service. They get to work alongside the New South Wales government to pilot and test solutions with the potential of a New South Wales government contract for successful solutions. There is also the benefit of developing and retaining intellectual property rights and the right to commercialise and sell solutions in domestic and global markets. The benefits for the New South Wales government include access to innovative solutions to policy and service delivery challenges, insights into different problem-solving approaches through working directly with SMEs, and a sustainable, ongoing job creation mechanism. Therefore, our measures of success for the SBIR program are more SMEs established and growing their R&D activities and jobs in New South Wales. New South Wales SMEs translating more ideas into innovative products and services, and New South Wales government agencies deliver better services to the New South Wales community by using innovative solutions. Can I just get confirmation? Are we on timeline for the slides? Thank you. The SBIR program has 3 phases. Phase 1, a feasibility study, where SMEs submit proposals to solve one of the 7 SBIR challenges. The proposals are assessed, first against each challenge, and then highlighting proposals that are particularly promising, with each successful applicant receiving a grant of up to $100,000 to conduct a feasibility study over a period of 3 months. Our aim is that we'll have 2 SMEs completing a feasibility study for each challenge, and at least 1 for each challenge during the next phase, the proof of concept. Proof of concept phase is the second phase. Successful feasibility study grantees are invited to apply for the proof of concept phase. Applications will be assessed, and successful grantees will receive up to $1 million to develop a proof of concept over a period of up to 15 months. Finally, phase 3 would be procurement, where New South Wales government agencies would consider purchasing successful solutions. As SBIR participants complete their feasibility studies and proofs of concept, the New South Wales government agency and SBIR team will work closely with them to provide advice and input and to help them develop their solutions. This occurs via both formal monthly check-ins and updates with all participants, and also through informal interactions and assistance. Post-SBIR, participants are encouraged to take their solutions to other customers and markets. The challenges have been specifically chosen that they encourage solutions that not only the New South Wales government would consider procuring, but also solutions that could be commercialised and sold to customers beyond the New South Wales government. Applicants must meet the 5 eligibility criteria, which include having an ABN, being a small to medium organisation with less than 200 full-time employees, and being headquartered or conducting the majority of their business in New South Wales. When we say IP, you don't need to formally hold the IP through a patent. We just want to make sure that you aren't violating someone else's IP. If you're using technology, whether patented or not, that's fine. If you're using someone else's technology, that's also fine, as long as you have a license and/or right to commercialise. For more information and to view the full eligibility criteria, please refer to the 2022 New South Wales SBIR Program guidelines available on the SBIR website. Applications for the feasibility study grants will be evaluated against the following 3 overarching criteria. First, solution details, where you describe your proposed solution and how it addresses the challenge, describing your solution's current technical readiness, and also what level of technical readiness you hope to achieve through the study. Additionally, try to include what makes your solution more innovative and superior to what's currently on the market. The second is commercial details. if you could describe the commercial potential of your product and your plan for commercialization, including adoption and scaling of your product and or service. The priority is first on meeting the needs of the government challenge, and then on potential wider market opportunities. Additionally, please identify potential commercialization barriers and how these might be mitigated. And finally, on delivery, we want to know, do you, the company and the project team, have the appropriate skills and experience, and do you have access to the equipment, technology, infrastructure, and financial resources to carry out your project? At this stage, you will be asked to provide a basic project plan, including a budget, risk management plan, and performance measures. We also ask applicants to submit some supporting materials, specifically a video presentation, no longer than 3 minutes, and a project budget. Applicants may also be required to provide profit and loss statements and balance sheets from the last 2 years. Eligible applicants will be assessed by both the New South Wales Government agency that proposed the challenge and an independent panel of experts with experience in business development, commercialization, venture capital, and entrepreneurship. In terms of writing the application, we would recommend avoiding the use of overly technical and scientific terms, as the application will be assessed by a wide audience, including non-technical and non-commercial people. There should be a focus on meeting the needs of the challenge, and please include any details or data to support your claim. Each question in the application form states which assessment criteria it is being scored against. Try and respond directly and succinctly to each question asked. There is a word limit for each question, but try to fully use this word limit to make the strongest possible case for your solution. And finally, additional documentation that is referenced throughout the application, such as if you have a detailed business plan, please ensure it's clearly labelled when it's attached to the form. For more information, please read the 2022 New South Wales SBIR guidelines before applying. The guidelines set out the SBIR program process and requirements in detail, including eligibility and assessment criteria, how we assess the applications and how we notify applicants and enter into grant agreements, how we monitor and evaluate performance, and responsibilities and expectations in relation to this opportunity. You may also wish to consult the New South Wales SBIR FAQs available on our website. When you're ready to apply, you can find the online application form on our website. Applications close at 9:59 Australian Eastern Standard Time on Tuesday, the 28th of February, 2023. Thank you for your time today. I'll now pass over to the Challenge Agency, who will talk through their challenge for today's webinar. At the end of this webinar, we will answer questions on the SBIR program in general and the specific challenge we're discussing today. Thank you, Alyssa.
Thanks, Lewis. Thank you, everyone, for coming along at lunchtime and for your interest in the Biosecurity Surveillance Challenge that we're going to present. I'm just going to see if I can launch it in Teams at my end. Hopefully that will work. So while it's loading, I'll just introduce myself. I'm the manager of invasive invertebrates biosecurity within biosecurity and food safety. And it's asking me a question. Would you like to resume from slide 2? No. Where was I? Biosecurity and food safety within the Department of Primary Industries, and we sit within the Department of Regional New South Wales. So we've got some background about the department and who we are, which I'll run through shortly. And this presentation was put together with the help of Debbie Brookfield as well, who's the Manager of Business Systems within DPI, and we'll get our team to introduce themselves in a few slides' time. We would also like to acknowledge country. I'm presenting from the Gumbaynggirr country in northern New South Wales. If anyone would like to add the country that they're joining from to the chat, please do so. The mission for the Department of Regional New South Wales is to deliver collaborative and strategic solutions that drive productive, sustainable resources and strong regional communities in New South Wales. And I'll just get the team to quickly run through and introduce themselves in terms of who we are. We like to see ourselves within regional New South Wales as a trusted local partner and problem solver, shaping a dynamic future for regional New South Wales. So before I go further into the mission of the Department of Primary Industries, we'll introduce ourselves, and just to show you, we are one of a number of agencies that belong to the larger Department of Regional New South Wales as the Department of Primary Industries. So, Debbie, I've already mentioned your role. Would you like to introduce yourself anyway?
I think you've covered it pretty well. Debbie Brookfield, Manager of Business Systems. I'm here for technology-related questions and referrals.
Thanks, Debbie. Deb? Are you there, Deb? No, we'll jump to Grant.
Sure. G'day, everybody. Grant Tranter, I'm the Manager of Systems and Intelligence with Biosecurity and Food Safety.
Ian?
Thanks, Alyssa. I'm Ian Turnbull. I work directly with Alyssa. I'm the Invasive Invertebrates Program Lead. However, I've spent the last 3 years in non-Indigenous vertebrate new incursions.
Thanks, Ian. And Peter?
Good afternoon. My name's Pete West. I'm based in Orange and manage, coordinate the feral scan program for communities around Australia to record information about established pest animals. Thank you.
I'm not sure if Deb has made it online or not. And I don't have her role right in front of me, sorry. Does anybody else? Deb Hailstones is one of the main organisers for this activity. So you might have her contact details. So the Department of Primary Industries has six strategic outcomes under our current strategic plan, with a purpose to maximise outcomes for New South Wales primary industries, the communities they support and the resources they rely on, both today and for the future. And biosecurity is one of those 6 strategic areas with the aim of having biosecure industries and environment, so that primary industries, the environment and the community are protected from the increasing threat and impact of pests, weeds and diseases and other biological incursions. So the challenge is biosecurity-wide across pest animals, weeds and diseases, but we have focused on some examples today from invasive species as a slightly more developed and possibly more obvious context for crowd or citizen surveillance. But the challenge itself is crowd surveillance to enhance biosecurity response capacity in New South Wales. We're looking for innovative technology solutions that leverage citizen surveillance to more accurately identify and validate biosecurity threats, including pest animals, weeds and diseases. It should aim to support citizens both in active surveillance, where they've been asked to look for something in particular, and in passive contexts where they come across something unusual in their day and they feel like they want to report it. The information you have probably presents this information in a bit more detail. So this is really just a summary of the challenge, that we're looking for innovative tech solutions that allow citizens to easily and promptly report potential biosecurity concerns through digital forms. We would like to scan social media to identify potential biosecurity threats. We'd like to be able to filter the citizen reports to identify the high-risk sightings and alert the appropriate parts of the department. We'd like to also alert citizens to reports and biosecurity threats in their area, and encourage citizens in the industry to record sightings in new areas or on new hosts or in different contexts. So the first example we just thought we'd show you today is cane toads. And we've got some metrics there around the community reports for cane toads. So since the containment zone was established, and I'll just get Ian to talk to you about that shortly, we've had 605 reports in 3 years. 126 of those were positive for cane toads, 82 were unconfirmed. Either it wasn't clear from the photograph or the report, or they couldn't be confirmed, and we get a high degree, around 65% of misrecognised species, because there are a number of native frogs that look a lot like cane toads, particularly to lay people. So Ian, if you would just like to jump in and explain the containment zone and the objective.
Yeah, certainly, Alyssa. So on the northeast corner of New South Wales, as indicated there on the map, we have the green area, which is the established area for cane toads in New South Wales, where they've come in almost 100 years ago and are sitting there now. New South Wales DPI in December 2019 established a biosecurity zone, which is the rest of the state, or the area that's indicated in red in that map. And it goes all the way to the western to South Australian border and the Victorian border. So in that zone, we require people to report any sightings of cane toads, and also to control them. So there's a regulatory requirement under the regulation to control them. So the 3 years is when the gazettal of the biosecurity zone occurred, and the number of images that are sent through indicate that people don't really have the capacity to accurately identify cane toads, and hence the image we developed for that. Cane toads have some specific features that can quite easily be determined, and other species moved out of there. There's only cane toads and another toad. There's no native toads in New South Wales or Australia for that matter. So that's the example, I suppose, in relation to what could assist us in filtering out all of those reports and records that that take up a lot of our time.
Thanks, Ian. But the plot thickens. Don't run away with cane toads just yet. We've also got some invasive ants that are high priority species of concern for New South Wales. There are 7 listed exotic tramp ants, they're known as, which are super colonisers and have extreme environmental impacts. Red imported fire ants are one of those, and they are in southeast Queensland. So they are one of the highest priorities for New South Wales for early detection. However, there are thousands of native and common exotic ant species that make it very difficult for citizens to screen out what they're looking at in terms of whether an ant that they've been bitten by might be an invasive ant that we want to know about. However, because of that massive program in southeast Queensland, there is a lot of data around community reporting, and that's one of the key recent references, McNaught, Wiley and Bell, who looked very specifically at the public reports for ants over a almost 16-year period, and analysed in terms of which ants were being reported and what traits they have in common with red imported fire ants. So again, I think it's not a great thing for a slide, but I wanted to show you because it's just sort of sitting there waiting for someone to make a screening tool in my eyes. And then we have a little bit of data around prohibited matter weeds. Since the Biosecurity Act commenced, we've had 142 positive detections of weeds that are listed as prohibited matter. So they don't occur in New South Wales, they possibly don't occur in Australia, and they have the objective of exclusion and prevention. And you can see from that slide that quite a portion of those reports are made by community members. So it's not all experts. Weeds officers and other experts do make a large number of fines, but there is a certain chunk that are detected by the community, and every single one of these detections has a very high return on investment. Around 100 to 1 is the economic modelling for these preventative species with prevention objectives. So we don't want to limit this challenge or overwhelm you, and it's a bit of a fine line because there are many listed species. So we've just sort of chosen to show you some of the listings from the invasive species world, but across biosecurity there are different types of regulatory instruments under the Act that have listed species differently. But the key ones, particularly for prevention and early detection, are known as prohibited matter. So there's 585 of those across all the various taxa right down to freshwater algae. So you can see there is a very big range of taxonomy that we're talking about for this. There's another 449 that are regulated for prohibited dealings, and that's where most of the vertebrate animals sit. Then there are another 20 species regulated within zones, and cane toads are one of those, as well as 106 notifiable pests and diseases where the only legal requirement is notification, and they sit across the same sort of spectrum of taxa. So the question of why it's hard to find these species of concern, there are a heap of reasons, and we can probably give you more once we start drilling down into the particular taxonomy that we're talking about. But as we've just shown, there are over 1,000 species of concern. So we probably would like to prioritise species for citizen surveillance. And some of the traits of each species, one of the impracticalities listed there, the fact that they're microscopic or too small to photograph with a phone, we see as an issue, but we didn't want to sort of put that up right up front because you might find a solution to something like that. Probably the biggest issue is that there are many similar looking species, and it is often difficult to discern the similar looking species if you're not an expert. Some of the species within a genus of interest can only be determined through a DNA test, so that also makes it very difficult for citizen surveillance. Some of the the diseases may only be able to be recognised through symptoms in the host or carrier, and then because of their prevention objective, these things are generally rare and unusual. They're not often seen or found. There are some legal implications of reporting or not reporting them. There are different business areas within DPI that receive and respond to the reports, and along with that, there are various reporting channels and surveillance tools that already exist. And in terms of using artificial intelligence, it can be difficult to obtain the learning images needed for computer vision for these species because they're not present in New South Wales or Australia even. So potentially having to go back to their home range country and, to get the numbers of photographs required can be also difficult. So I've just listed some of the existing citizen surveillance tools that have been developed. The one in green, WeedScan, is the only one that is on track to have artificial intelligence and computer vision built into the functionality that will be available to the public. It's not complete yet, so it's still in development. And as far as I know, and I don't know a lot about some of these products, but none of the others incorporate artificial intelligence yet. There is a web scraping portal that uses keywords and scrapes through a whole range of social and e-commerce platforms. Feral Scan is one of the premier products for vertebrate pests for citizen surveillance and engagement. So on average, over 50,000 entries per year from over 34,000 registered users. So that's probably got the biggest user base. WeedScan, as I mentioned, is in development with the Centre for Invasive Species Solutions, CSIRO and DPI. We have New South Wales Weedwise, which is a long-standing product, which is more of an information product, but it does have a report function. However, users have to enter the details of their local weeds officer in order to report something to them through the app. We have a biosecurity app that's in development with DPI, which is trying to extend notifications to and from the community when a biosecurity event occurs. We have reporting online forms and 1-800 numbers, and some of the metrics from the 1-800 numbers that we had 14,000 calls in 2022, and around half of those were connected to the varroa mite response. And then in terms of the toads and frogs, I thought we'd show you these three products. So Frog ID is an Australian museum app that allows people to record the audio, the sound that they've heard frogs making. That audio goes through to Australian museum staff who listen to each submission and decide what it is. So it's still a manual process. They can discern a toad sound, so that has picked up some toad presence, but it's definitely not artificial intelligence that's doing that task. Toad tracker is, we think, still a proposal for drone AI surveillance for toads with Monash University. We haven't had an update recently on that one and where it's at. And there is a cane toad challenge app from Spotter On, which is in use in Queensland. But again, I'm not aware that it uses any form of artificial intelligence. So My Pest Guide Reporter is the Western Australian app that is used for all of their biosecurity citizen surveillance. And I asked for some stats from that, but just didn't get them back in time. But I'm sure they'd be happy to provide those stats if anyone was interested. And then there is, of course, iNaturalist, which has been around for a long time, doesn't specifically focus on invasive species, and I think there is some confusion with people as to whether or not they should report invasive species in iNaturalist. So that's just sort of a snapshot of some of the existing tools and apps. So the solution requirements and the operating environment are quite specific. Within this challenge, your proposal needs to demonstrate the scientific basis of the technology, and it needs to have at least one element of a system to crowdsource biosecurity surveillance. So, for example, a process to screen records, whether they be mentions or images shared by citizens on various platforms and in various formats. It could be an online reporting solution for citizens to lodge potential records, deployable on smart devices, and it could be a solution using artificial intelligence or machine learning to help with ID and risk management. We would also really love a triage process to ensure the highest priority risks and issues are immediately referred to correctly trained scientific personnel, to filter out the low-risk sightings and provide real-time feedback to the submitter, and to allow DPI to contact the submitter for subsequent ID purposes. It must demonstrate a database to store the records, collate and report information to DPI, cloud infrastructure or software as service where possible, and function within the DPI case management system, which is MAX, in accordance with our regional New South Wales policies. And the proposals can be technology agnostic. Oh, Deb's just saying she had a system crash. Go on. The benefits, as we see them, obviously there's a big public interest factor here. Public sector resources that go into surveillance and biosecurity eradication efforts are enormous. Cost the New South Wales government an estimated additional $1.98 billion, with costs of the costs of control and management and eradication orders of magnitude higher. So the New South Wales economy would benefit immensely from early detection. Early detection increases the chances of successful eradication or containment. So that's why it's such an important thing to find these species early. It just increases the chance that we will be able to control or eradicate them from New South Wales. Citizens will benefit. They'll be more informed and empowered to report potential biosecurity risks. High value primary production and natural environments are another layer and group of audiences and contexts that could benefit. Other Australian states and territories, and that is one of the other issues, I guess, is that each jurisdiction can sometimes do these things differently, and some are further along in this process than others. So it would be nice to have something that could be more standardised across to other states and territories. Threatened species is a nice beneficiary that we could detect and find other things that we want in New South Wales and that are also rare and not often found. And then, of course, other sectors needing surveillance where the learnings and technologies could be applied, such as health, defence and trade. This slide just gives a little bit of a few fun facts or fast facts on the value of the interventions for different species and the multi-billion-dollar industries that they're protecting. So our total estimated primary industries output was over 16 billion for 2019 and 2020, and I think that's just cracked a record for 23 billion, I think, last week, so it's going up. And I think if you get this slide pack, you can drill down into some of those details around the extent and the investment for those different species, including cane toads. There are additional considerations with this work, and those are connected to contracts, policies and legislation that need to be considered. Procurement would have to be under our ICT services scheme. Successful applicants would need to register as suppliers under that scheme. The data must all be stored within Australia. The department's privacy practices are regulated through the Privacy and Personal Information Protection Act. And our activities in the biosecurity domain are governed under the Biosecurity Act, and those two acts have interaction as well, which needs to be considered in terms of what we can share about biosecurity threats and impacts and reports and locations and that kind of thing. And then just some behavioural insights in our experience dealing with citizen reporting. For citizens to report biosecurity concerns, particularly on their own land, they need to really trust the government and have a clear understanding of what will happen if a biosecurity threat is confirmed on their land. So we've noticed that avoiding the use of legal narratives and legal threats as the main motivation for people to report is the best approach. Avoid listing off the offences of failing to notify, and even avoiding using the word report and notify and alert can be quite off-putting to people. So we've found that the use of contact or call us, explaining the benefits of finding it early, explaining what will happen if a biosecurity threat is confirmed, stating how the authorities will help and assist, and explaining the legal situation clearly are all things that help to increase the number of reports from the general public in the biosecurity space. So I think that's the end of the presentation. So if you would like to ask any questions, and we've decided that Debbie Brookfield is probably the best central contact to begin with. And then obviously we would probably defer further engagement with the department around your proposal off to the particular business area or the people that work in the space. So that's, over to Lewis, I guess. Do you want me to stop sharing my screen now, Lewis?
That's totally fine. Having just questions up there would be great. If there are any questions, could you type them in the chat, and then I will I'll put you off mute to be able to come in and ask that question to specific people. Justin.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, thanks. So this is it's really interesting to us. We run a video submission, essentially a crowdsourcing tool called Vloggy here from Sydney, and we've been working with UTS on some learning modules to identify things. And I think the point you made about it's difficult to obtain learning images. But are there other, because some of these insects are too small, but are there other things that could be learned, such as the destruction of habitat or patterns in the environment that could be detected using a standard camera, high definition camera on a mobile phone? Is there anything there that you've looked at?
I can probably answer from a fire ants perspective. So there is artificial intelligence behind high-risk habitat surveillance for fire ants in southeast Queensland, but that is through aerial surveillance, not phone level So I'm not aware of anything that looks at the context more so, and particularly
I'm
not
guessing,
too much.
so, I mean, part of what we would propose would be building those models, but I'm just thinking if the insect itself is too small, there is probably stuff that can be learnt about the damage to the environment and about the habitats that could be used as a substitute whilst using existing technology. Is what I'm
Yes.
thinking. I didn't know if any. Yeah.
I think the short answer is yes, the symptoms, the hosts, those sorts of things could be determined depending on the species of concern. I'm just not aware of an example I can give you. If
Okay.
anybody else is.
And
If I could just throw in there as well, I think it also comes back to the fact that if they're those prohibited matter species, we actually don't necessarily have a lot of images of either the insect or pest or whatever it is itself, or the impact of it in New South Wales, because we haven't seen it here. So we'd have to be going back to the country that pest might be natively from to try and source that sort of thing.
okay, not insurmountable, but worth noting. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Sorry, Alyssa.
Yeah, I'll just acknowledge, I'm just looking at the chat, that yes, we've overlooked mentioning that iNaturalist does have a powerful AI algorithm for ID. So, and Andrew Turley is online and could probably talk about that in much more detail than we can, if anybody wants to, because I think it is important to understand what other platforms are there and what they do and don't do. So if that was something that any of you wanted more coverage on, I think Andrew would be a good person to give you that.
Yeah, hi, Elisa.
Hi.
Just want to flag that we're already working in biosecurity alerts space, but with the Federal Department of Agriculture, and we are looking at expanding this. It's basically based off the iNaturalist data that's already being collected. There is a lot of invasive species data that's coming in through iNaturalist nationally. And when it comes through, iNaturalist comes into the ALA, and we've got existing alert functionality that's coming out of that. So obviously, so ALA is part of CSIRO, so we don't by default meet all the criteria for this grant, but if there's others who are interested in collaborating. Also, we will share, I think, with you, Elisa, a bit more about what we are already doing, because I'd hate to see everyone reinventing the wheel when we've already got solutions out there.
Yeah, and I think that's probably something that should go on that issues list, is the number of other platforms and channels that do exist across biosecurity and potentially invasive species. So yeah, Grant, that'd be great to have a neat view of iNaturalist from an invasives point of view and a broader biosecurity point of view.
Justin, we've had a hand up.
Yeah, so just to Andrew's point, we have a lot of the capability around the citizen crowdsourcing and the video processing, but we would be interested in consortiums and partnering with other people who have other parts of especially the deeper knowledge in the biosecurity space. So what's the I guess this is more of a question for Lewis in terms of the guidelines of the SBIR is when you put in a submission, is it on behalf of a consortium that you have formed, or do you do some work in matching SMEs up together?
We would leave that up to the SMEs. If you would like to work as a consortium, that's up to you. In terms of our eligibility criteria, what we would ensure is that the company who is doing the majority of the work, they still need to meet the requirements of being a small to medium enterprise, doing the majority or based in majority of their business or based in New South Wales. All of those eligibility criteria still needs to be met by the SME doing the majority of the actual work.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other further questions, or shall we wrap up for the day? I see Erin Roger has just written, is this the start of a question or is it finished? All right. Thank you all for attending. I'll wrap up the Q&A there. If you'd like to find more information on the SBIR program, you can find a link to the application form and the more information on the challenge statements. These can be found on the New South Wales SBIR program website. A recording of this webinar will also be available on our website with a transcript of the questions and answers in the coming days. If you need to ask any further questions, we have a contact email address, sbir@chiefscientist.nsw.gov.au. Thank you again for attending and wish you all the best. Thank you very much.